Hey everyone, we're back. In this video, we're going to solve this logarithmic equation, and we're going to do it using the properties of logarithms. We're actually going to condense both sides of the equation, and condensing both sides of the equation is going to allow me to then use that same property of equality that we used when we found the same base on both sides of the equation. So, when we're adding two logarithms that have the same base, we can multiply what's inside them and write it as a single log. So these are those properties. This was the first property. We're going the backwards way. So from the right side of that property to the left. And so this would be log base 4 of x times x plus 1. On the right side of the equation, we have log base 4 of 6 times x minus 1. Okay. Now, everything else being equal, we have log base 4 of something and log base 4 of something else. But the equal sign means that these aren't even different. So if the log base 4s match up, we can ignore them and just set x squared plus x, I just distributed, equal to 6x minus 6. Again, I just distributed. So this is looking very quadratic. So I'm going to move everything to one side. And then let's see if we can factor this. X, what multiplies to give me positive 6, but adds to give me negative 5? Negative 2 and negative 3 does the trick. If you were thinking negative 6 and positive 1, that is not going to give you a positive 6 here. It's going to give you a negative 6 there. So it's the negative 2 and the negative 3, which means that x equals 2 and x equals 3. Now, the problem here is we still need to check everything back in the original. It is possible that through this process, we have found an answer that doesn't actually work in the original equation. And so I'm just going to make sure that when I plug the 2 and the 3 into any of these logs, I'm not getting a negative number. So let's say the answer had come out, or 0. If the answer had come out to 1, if x equals 1 was an answer, if I plugged it in here, I'd get 0 in this log, and so 1 would not work as an answer. However, 2 and 3 look like they're safe, and you can check this on your own with your calculator. They both work. So let's do another one very similar, okay? On the left side of this equation, we have two log base 2s being added together. So that means I can multiply what's inside them. So this would be x minus 3 times x minus 4 equals 1. So I'm actually going to multiply this out, what's inside here. So that gives me log base 2 of x squared minus 7x plus 12 equals 1. So in order to get to the inside of this logarithm, I would need to rewrite this logarithm as an exponent. I could also exponentiate base 2 both sides. This is sort of like logging both sides of the equation. 2 to the log base 2 of something gives me that something, and I'll explain that in a second. And then over here we have 2 to the 1, which is exactly the same thing we would get if we use this definition. 2 to the 1 gives me what's inside here. That's the definition of a logarithm. Now, why does 2 to the log base 2 cancel out? Well, just looking at this expression here, this is saying, what do I raise 2 to get x squared minus 7x plus 12? So this represents the exponent that I would raise 2 to get x squared minus 7x plus 12. And look, I'm raising 2 to the exponent, that if I raise 2 to that exponent, I get this stuff. So I'm going to get this stuff. It might not have made sense, but I assure you that is the way it works. If that's too much for you, just think about the definition and you'll get the same answer. Okay, so we're at this step. So I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. And again, quadratic. This is why we spend time on quadratics and factoring in Algebra 1, Algebra 2, pre-calc. If you took the transition class to higher mathematics, like all that stuff. So x and x gives me x squared, and then -5 and -2 give me -7, but multiply to give me 10. So x equals 5 and x equals 2 are my two possible answers, but look what happens when I plug 2 into the original. 2 minus 3 is -1, and 2 minus 4 is -2, and I can't have negative numbers inside my logs. So this is actually not a solution. This is the only solution. X equals 5, x equals 2, not a solution. All right, in the next video, we're going to go through a word problem, and that's going to take up the whole video, and then we'll be done after that.